I am
Yeah, it's
so
not possible.
pumped to talk about this movie. First thing I want to do, though, is give you guys a synopsis. And I think I'm going to lean on IMDb for this because this is one of those things where I'm not coming anywhere close to spoiling anything for you. So this is the synopsis that IMDb has. Madison is paralyzed by shocking visions of grisly murders, and her torment worsens as she discovers that these waking dreams are, in fact, terrifying realities. So, we had talked about the Malignant trailer on this show a while back, and I vividly remember saying, like, oh, it looks pretty good, but it looks like a bunch of things that I've kind of seen before. This movie is like nothing I've ever seen before. But it is though, because it
It
feels
is.
like old school James Wan. There's something very there's something very old school in general about it, but at the same time, it's got so many components that are such wild creative swings that it gets to live in both worlds at the same time. And just like overall tone, style, the look of the movie. I was just soaking it all up and loving every single ounce of it.
This is our glorious, fantastic return to like late 90s, early 2000s horror. You just think about House on Haunted Hill, you think about 13 Ghosts, and there's like Dark Castle comes to mind immediately. The Game Overs, the Fear.coms, those movies that are so quintessential of that little millennium turn. And we had a blip, like we had a blip of those movies for a few years. And then you go right into Saw, James Wan again, kind of Shanghaiing and kind of taking the genre into a direction. So he took Saw and he turned the horror genre into like torture porn and all that stuff, and it went that way. So that's fine. But James Wan has just gone back to almost the period that he disrupted, and he's like, "Yo, but I want to make my movie from that period," and that's Malignant. Like it is so bonkers, batshit. I didn't know it was happening for like the latter half of the movie. And even like, not to say that I didn't know because like the title is the title. In any case, man, that is some wild swings.
Yeah, it really is. And it is him going back to that period of film, but it also almost felt like a big celebration of the style and accomplishments he's achieved on his own throughout the years. I like there are touches of Saw in the score. The visuals make me think of Insidious. I mean, I'm sure you loved the reds in the movie. The creature design is reminiscent of his past films. This just feels like one big batch of James Wan filmmaking, bringing everything from the entirety of his career together, minus maybe Fast and Furious and Aquaman. I mean, in the horror genre
Yeah, the
specifically,
horror
but
genre.
he's a horror filmmaker that I love to my core. So to be able to get that feeling through this one movie was very exciting to me. And then like look
Yeah.
at this cast. So here's another thing. I think this is Annabelle Wallis's best performance yet, maybe her best role yet, where a role actually gives her something to really sink her teeth into. Because I've seen her in a whole bunch of things and she's really good. But I always find myself thinking that her head is hitting a ceiling because of the writing. And here, because the script takes big swings, she gets to take big swings. And man, is she good at it.
She is like the swings that she is taking too, and the things that her character has to endure and sell. Like she has to sell things. I can't spoil things, and this is so effing hard. But the things that she has to sell are some like sci-fi channel bullshit. And I say that with love because it still comes across in such
Yeah.
a way that I am laughing my ass off the whole time at this film. And again, not in a negative way. I'm laughing my ass off because I'm having so much fun. This is a quintessential. I really wish I saw this in a crowd, like a
Yeah.
midnight crowd, especially because I did watch it on HBO Max. Like I just popped it on today, and there's a glory to be able to do that. But if I was at like a Fantastic Fest and this was one of those just like midnight surprises, I would be howling the whole time, having so much fun. And that's the kind of movie this is. It goes back to, even you're mentioning the James Wan like nostalgia in a way. It goes back to like Dead Silence, and this is that era of James Wan. This is that James Wan where he's done things in his movies where the cops feel very Saw like when he made those cop archetypes in Saw, and there's a scare that is so very insidious where it's like a child running, and he's just done all these things, but he's like, yo, what if I just like had the dumbest amount of fun with this and no one could fuck with me. Like, that is Malignant, and that is, I respect the hell out of it, and some people are gonna hate it for that.
I think these are some of the best cops in a horror movie I've seen in a while, where they feel like full people on their own. They don't feel like throwaway surface level cop characters. They're a lot of fun to watch, and the humor really works as it plays in this world, but it's also kind of fun to see them really lean into cop tropes. And I think it plays very, very well. Whereas I usually think that that's a weak spot in these types of horror movies. And then I can't not give Maddie Hasson a huge shout out, who, I mean,
Yes.
like, she's another one who needs to be, on a bigger platform so more people out there can realize what she's capable of. She's so good in this, and I was a very big fan of the show Impulse, which used to be a YouTube original show, and I think that show needed to go another season, but it didn't. But she just, like, led the crap out of that show, and now we get to
I
see
mean,
her
she
excel in a James Wan movie, and I freaking love it.
we just saw her in We Summon the Darkness, and she
Yes.
is having so much fun in that. But I think, to your credit, it's the thing of she was having so much fun in a film that, same way you said about Annabelle Wallis, only let her have as much fun as the script let her. And the script kind of held her back, I think, in We Summon the Darkness, where she is taking swings in princess dresses and doing things that are just having so, like, again, she's playing a serious character, but able to have fun in this malignant world. And I don't, I know we can't get to, like, when do we get to the spoilers? Because
We
there
will,
is
we will.
things. Okay. But
All right.
also to the score too. To the score, I
Yeah.
want to say definite Friday the 13th vibes too. I know the Saw vibes are definitely there, but this
Mhm.
felt so like Manfredi-ish too, going back to Friday the 13th. And then it cuts under with like the Seattle alt rock grunge scene. So you have these haunting covers of something that would like be discovered in Seattle and like it be attributed to that music scene. And then all of a sudden you get those like string notes from I swear to God, they were like right out of a Friday the 13th soundtrack. It's playing with like nostalgia outside of Juan. It's just playing with just fun horror nostalgia.
Joe Bashar again. I don't understand how we're not thinking about him as one of the greatest composers ever when you think about all of the iconic horror scores at this point that he is behind. I mean, so many
Yeah.
things where if I hear even a single stitch of a score from a movie that he's done, it immediately transports me back to
Pops
that
in.
moment. And I think over time, his work in Malignant is going to have that same effect. We also like only lightly touched on the visuals here, but this is like a beautifully shot movie from
So
top
cool.
to bottom. The atmosphere is just absolutely nuts. It is so incredibly powerful. And when it comes to the scares, man, this movie does not hold back. A plus stunts and gore effects all over the place. And speaking of it being all over the place, another thing I loved about Malignant is that it comes out the gate so hot. This movie is pretty much at an 11 almost from beginning to end. It doesn't stop. And what
Dead
it is,
silence.
it's just under 2 hours, but this
Yeah.
thing flies and it's so tight. It really doesn't waste any time, which I really appreciated when it came to the, figuring out the mystery. There was no fluff there. They just did it and it worked.
That's that dead silence James Wan. That's that dead silence James Wan where he kills somebody in the first, however many minutes. And he sets the stage by being like, this movie is gonna be intense. And this is not gonna like pull any punches. We're gonna murder. We're gonna show blood. Talking about the cinematography, that is where the giallo aspect comes in, because you definitely have influences of giallo horror there with all these red saturating lights and like the lights, especially in the way they frame the darkness. I feel like he's playing with 17 different subgenres and he doesn't give a shit if they come together because he is just having so much fun. And that's what brings them together. These things that shouldn't work, like the opening credit scene that again is just like industrial rock. It's all these like intercut, weird, creepy images. And that is something, again, fear.com, to bring up something from the the 2000 era. Like that's what it feels like. And then you get the giallo and then you get all these other aspects and you're like, I don't know how this movie like Frankensteined itself together, but James Wan doing it just makes all the sense.
I think it's score time. Do you want me to go first? Can I go first? I want to go first. I'm giving Malignant 4.5 Deweys out of 5 on the Dewey
My
Decimal
God.
Movie scale. I adored this movie. I had such a blast. I was yelling at the screen in the best way possible. I'm pretty sure I cackled a couple of times. I had such a blast with this thing. It's not flawless. There's one CG heavy shot that I don't think works as well as intended. And I'm
Yeah.
curious to watch it again and really piece together every element of the mystery, but I just had so much fun with it. And I think the amount of fun I had with it very much reflects a 4.5 out of 5 on the Dewey Decimal Movie scale.
All right. Um, I struggle with it because I think I had as much fun as you. I'm definitely not going to downplay the fun angle because that is what makes this movie watchable. Um, I think I land at like a 3.5 because I still have to compare it to other things that James Wan has accomplished. And while there may be these magnificent like shots of the main character running through her house and we see it from the top down and it looks like a dollhouse, like there is some really cool things that James Wan, he does the Evil Dead camera. Like he does an Evil Dead camera inside the house. He is having fun. And that is what gets conveyed throughout this movie. But if I'm going to compare it to Insidious, if I'm going to compare it to Dead Silence, if I'm going to compare it to any other movie he's made, I still have to put it down to like a 3.5 because there are things that show. The scenes show in this movie. He's having a fun, he's having a vibe. Maybe it's also a good case of why people need producers and editors just to be like, hey, you made something really cool and fun. Let me just make a few comments here. I think that's where I land, but I'm still positive on it. I'm still very glowing on it, and I still had
Okay.
a tremendous amount of fun with it.
All right. Before we go into spoilers, I am dedicating this Malignant review to the wonderful Ian Wilder, who is basically the king of horror over on the Patreon team. And I have a whole lot of movie and TV reviews to thank him for, like this Malignant one. So, Ian, thank you for your continued support and just the fact that you're awesome.